keeping up with AI, honestly, it feels like you blink and something major has changed, doesn't it?
It really does. It's moving so fast. And sometimes the claims, well, they need a closer look.
Absolutely. And that's why we're doing this deep dive today. We're looking into a specific situation involving OpenAI's O3 model.
Ah, yes, the benchmark scores issue.
Exactly. There were some, let's say, discrepancies that popped up.
Right. And maybe we should quickly touch on benchmarks. For anyone listening, think of them like standardized tests for AI.
Good point. Like frontier math, which we'll talk about. It tests really tough math problems. It's supposed to give us a way to compare models.
Supposed to, yes. It's a tool for evaluation.
So our mission here is to unpack what happened with O3 scores, why it matters, and maybe what it tells us, you listening, about how to read these AI announcements.
And we're drawing mainly from that TechCrunch piece and also Epoch AI's own posts on X, right?
That's right. Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Back to December. OpenAI announces O3.
And there was quite a bit of buzz around it.
Definitely. A key part of that buzz came from Mark Chen, OpenAI's chief research officer. He mentioned a specific result.
The frontier math score.
Yeah. He said O3 hit over 25% on frontier math, but he added a qualifier.
The aggressive test time compute settings part?
Exactly, which hinted at maybe non-standard conditions, but still over 25%.
And you have to remember the context there. Existing models, they were scoring, what, below 2%?
Right, less than 2%. So this jump to over 25, it sounded huge, like a massive leap in AI reasoning for math problems.
It certainly painted a picture of O3 being something, well, potentially game-changing, made a very strong first impression.
No doubt. It got everyone's attention. But then the plot thickens.
Right, because Epoch AI, the people who actually created frontier math,
they decided to test the model themselves, the one that was actually released to the public.
Which is crucial, isn't it? Independent testing.
Totally. And what did they find?
Well, their results were different. They found the public O3 model scored around 10% on frontier math.
10%. Okay, so still a good score, better than the old baseline.
Definitely still notable, yes, but quite a bit lower than that over 25% figure that was initially highlighted.
Yeah, that's a significant gap. So naturally, people started asking, why? Why the difference?
And both sides, Epoch AI and OpenAI, kind of floated some possible reasons.
What were they? One idea was about resources, right?
Yes. Epoch AI suggested maybe OpenAI used like a more powerful internal setup for that first test, an internal scaffold, they called it.
Meaning more computing power than you'd get in the regular release version?
Potentially, yeah. Or just different amounts of computation time allowed during the test itself. These things can really affect the outcome.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Epoch AI also noted they used a newer version of frontier math.
Ah, so the test itself changed.
Slightly, yes. Their version had more problems, 290 versus the 180, and the older one OpenAI might have used initially. So arguably a harder test.
Right. And Epoch AI was pretty clear that their testing setup probably wasn't identical to OpenAI's internal one.
They were careful to point that out, yes. Comparing apples and slightly different apples, perhaps.
Then adding another layer, we had the ARC Prize Foundation weigh in.
Right. They had tested a pre-release version of O3.
And what was their take?
They basically said the model that got released to the public, it's a different model. Their words.
Different how?
Tuned differently. Optimized more for chat product use.
Okay, so maybe less purely focused on raw benchmark performance and more on being, like, useful day to day.
That seems to be the implication. They also observed that the public O3 versions, the different compute tiers,
different sizes or power level.
Exactly. They said those were all smaller, less powerful than the pre-release version they had benchmarked.
And generally, more power equals better benchmark scores, right?
That's usually the correlation, yes. Bigger model, more compute often leads to higher scores on these kinds of tasks.
And OpenAI themselves have actually sort of confirmed this line of thinking.
Yeah, Wenda Zhu on their technical staff talked about it in a live stream.
What does Zhu say?
Basically, that the production version, the one people actually use, was deliberately more optimized for real-world use cases and for speed.
Ah, speed. That's often a trade-off.
Exactly. Zhu said these optimizations could lead to benchmark disparities differences from maybe purely research-focused version.
And the reason for optimizing that way?
Cost efficiency, general usefulness, faster response times for users, things that matter a lot when you deploy a model widely.
So maybe not chasing the absolute peak benchmark score if it makes the model slower or more expensive for everyday queries.
That seems to be the trade-off they made, yes.
Okay, so stepping back,
Mm.
what's the bigger picture here? For me, it feels like another reminder.
About benchmarks.
Yeah, especially benchmarks shared by the companies selling the AI service. Maybe don't take them purely at face value.
It's probably wise. Healthy skepticism is good. We are seeing more of these. Let's call them benchmark controversies or discussions.
It feels like it's becoming more common, doesn't it, as the competition heats up?
Absolutely. Companies want to grab headlines, show they're leading the pack.
And this isn't the only example, right? Weren't there similar things recently with...
Yeah, there have been others. People raised questions about Elon Musk's XAI and Grok 3 benchmarks.
And Meta, too.
Meta admitted at one point they'd highlighted results from a model version that wasn't the one initially released. So it's a pattern in the industry, it seems.
It really underscores the need to look closely at which model was tested, how it was tested, and who did the testing.
Definitely. Context is everything.
But here's another twist with O3. Even with this whole discussion around the initial score,
Things move fast.
right? OpenAI has already released other models like O3 Mini High and O4 Mini.
And reports suggest those actually outperform the original public O3 on Frontier Math now.
So the performance landscape shifted again almost immediately.
Plus, they've mentioned an O3 Pro version is coming soon, presumably a more powerful variant.
So that initial slightly lower than hyped score for the first public O3, maybe it's not the final word, it might just be a temporary snapshot.
It could well be. The capabilities are constantly evolving. Today's benchmark champion might be yesterday's news tomorrow.
Still, it does raise broader questions, I think, about transparency.
For sure, how clearly are these capabilities being communicated? Is the version being benchmarked the same one users get? These are important questions.
And there was even that side note about Epoch AI's funding. Didn't some of it come from OpenAI?
That did come out, yes. After the initial O3 announcement, Epoch AI clarified their funding sources, which included OpenAI, among others.
It just highlights how interconnected this field is and the potential for, well, perceived conflicts or biases, even if unintended.
It's a complex ecosystem. You have research institutes, big tech companies, funding relationships. It all plays a part.
Okay, so let's try and distill this. What's the main takeaway for you, the listener?
I think it's that initial benchmark claims, while exciting, need context. You really need independent checks and to understand the test conditions.
Right, don't just grab the headline number.
Yeah.
Ask, was this a special test setup? Is this the same model I can actually use?
Exactly. It's like comparing a Formula One car's lap time to a family sedan's 0 to 60. Both are performance metrics, but they measure very different things under different conditions.
And the O3 situation really shows that complexity. It's not always straightforward.
Benchmarks are useful, definitely. But they aren't the whole story, especially when companies optimize the final product for things like speed or cost.
Those real-world factors matter just as much, if not more, for the average user.
Absolutely.
So that leaves us with a final thought, something for you to chew on. As these AI models get woven deeper into everything we do,
And they are, increasingly.
how do we, just as regular people trying to stay informed, how do we best judge what they can really do? How do we ensure development is responsible and the reporting is transparent?
It's a critical question. Maybe it involves looking at who benefits from a particular benchmark narrative.
Yeah, thinking about the motivations behind the numbers. And definitely trying to get information from more than one place. Don't just rely on the press release.
Seek out those independent analyses, diverse perspectives, build your own understanding. It's getting more important all the time.